Hi, welcome back. I am streaming again. I thought today I would do another combat tutorial. This will probably be the only combat tutorial that I run for today. I thought I would start early, and I've decided to select something that I enjoy. I have been thinking about the Yeti for a while now, and I thought I would present you an encounter and sort of run through a basic combat. It'll give you some basics in terms of how to use the Yeti and how to use your wizard. Now you will find the start time for this video down in the description, so you can get past all of this, so feel free to look down in the description later on and you should be able to find the start time down there. Now normally, for those of you who've not been part of my live streams before, it's very good for everybody to sort of give me an idea if there's any problems with their sound or video before I start. So feel free to comment as you go, but what I will do to make sure that everything is going to work properly, Smash Bro 99, let's go. Yes, we will go in a second, mate. I'm going to present everything first. If you haven't been part of my live streams, I present everything first, and then once I've done that, I'm going to open it up for anybody who's part of a live chat at the end. So even if you hear my sign out at the very end of the video, don't run away. I usually sort of try to present this in such a way that it's usable for somebody else who doesn't like listening to the live stream and all of the questions and answers near the end. I'm hoping this will be useful for players and for dungeon masters who need an idea for running an encounter in, say, a snowy location. So let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And this is well, it's not about Yeti and the SETI, but I thought this was an appropriate meme for this particular encounter and this combat tutorial, and that's what we're doing. I'm going to run a combat tutorial. I'm going to give you a bit of a setup. Hopefully you'll find this useful as a player and a dungeon master, maybe to give you a few ideas, and I'm going to change it up today. So I'm going to give people an opportunity to think about some of the options they might have had available when dealing with this particular encounter. So let's set the scene. Right now, the adventuring party are trying to cross some snowy mountains, and the wizard, for whatever reason, has got separated from the rest of the group, and they're a bit lost. There's a storm starting to set in. You can see the mist sort of developing. It's getting quite windy. It's very, very cold. And yes, I do know the picture does not reflect somebody who's traveling in snow. I totally understand that. That makes an awful lot of sense. And what happens is there is a Yeti who is hunting the wizard. The wizard doesn't know anything about this. Now, the thing with a Yeti is they have camouflage, which means that they can have advantage on a stealth check in a snowy location. So they're likely to be able to get very, very close without the elf wizard being able to detect them at all. Even if they did, even if you look at something like the passive check or make an active check, it's going to be quite difficult. So this Yeti is sneaking up and then decides to howl. Now, the idea behind what's going on with the Yeti is going to howl, causing the shelf of ice above the wizard to break off, which is some distance away, and then causing an avalanche, driving the wizard down towards the Yeti. So this is what the Yeti's doing. So there's a giant howl, and suddenly that ice cracks off that overhanging rock and starts to plummet down, pushing all of the fresh snow down the mountain. There's powder flying everywhere, and the wizard suddenly realizes what's going on and only has seconds to respond. Suddenly, this terrible creature appears down the hill, but there's no way to really escape. The only avenue seems to be either head towards the avalanche, head towards the Yeti, or go laterally across the mountainside. But that's not going to get you away from the avalanche. So this is our encounter, and we're going to roll initiative, and we're going to play it out and see what happens. Now, I would tell you right now that this character is only level 1. and to present an encounter like this would be quite cruel. So to present it in this way for a group of characters, since I'm only using one character, might be a little bit easier. But you've got two dynamics. You have potentially a battle and a creature to deal with, and you also have a natural disaster or a natural hazard that's been presented at the same time. This makes the encounter a little bit more dangerous and certainly a lot more interesting. My suggestion to you is try to do this encounter, if you use it, as a group rather than as a single individual. I'm doing that simply to make life easy for myself. Okay, so we're going to do initiative rolls. The first thing is let's roll initiative for each of the characters. I'm going to start off with our wizard. I would say to you that an encounter like this is probably smart for you to go with the fall back and shoot technique. So our wizard has a initiative modifier of +3, and I'm going to roll a 20-sided dice. We'll get rid of the black one for now, and we'll roll this. Hopefully I'll just move that over a little bit more so you can see. Okay, so I rolled a 15. So 3 plus 15 comes to 18. Someone will let me know if I get my maths wrong. So that is our first initiative roll. So you can see, and I am going to just mark that down so I don't forget, because I'm going to need it later on another screen. And next we'll do the Yeti. Now the Yeti has a 1 for their modifier for initiative. Now when you're looking for the initiative modifier for your Yeti, you'll find that it's not listed as initiative. It's listed as the dexterity modifier. So if you get confused about where to find it, that's what you're looking for. So it's 1 plus a 20-sided dice roll for the initiative roll. I got a 7. So 1 plus 7 is 8. And that is our initiative for the Yeti. Now we're not finished. We actually have to place them into order so that you can actually, let's just bring that over a little bit more so you can actually see what's going on. If you can't see any of the panels, you'll let me know and I will do my best to make sure I slide them into the right position. Okay? Alright, so I'll just make a note of that so I can now order them. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these numbers, and the biggest number goes at the top and the smallest number goes at the bottom, which means the wizard fortunately is going to get to go first. That's kind of like a whew, thank God for that, thank God for that. Okay, so I'm going to just mark that down so we get the wizard first. One wizard. Now I want you to start thinking about a level 1 wizard. What sort of options do they have available to them for a situation like this? Would you just flee? You're dealing with a creature which might potentially move faster than you, or would you go with the shoot and scoot? Calling out for help might be helpful, but there's a lot of noise being generated by that blizzard. Certainly think that would be at least smart to try and do that, is to call out for help. Okay, so there is our initiative. I'm just going to move this out of the way and place that down there. Make sure you can see that. Okay, so there, we'll just move this down a little bit more. So we're going to wind up blocking the line, but you should be able to see what's going on. Okay, so first thing, we know that highest initiative goes first. That means the wizard, and then the Yeti will go next. So we'll mark that, and there we go. All right, so next, we have some choices. We can flee, we can move and shoot or scoot, you might say, and then, or shoot and scoot, is it? Or we have a variety of spells here that we can use. One being something like Firebolt. We have Shield, not really useful unless we get hit yet. We have Burning Hands. It's a close quarter weapon or spell, which really, if we're getting that close, things are not looking good. We have Magic Missile, which means we get to shoot and we don't actually have to worry about making an attack roll. We have Ray of Frost. Against something that's in a frosty and cold environment, probably not a great idea. We have something like Shocking Grasp, which is a close quarter weapon. So you really, for that spell, you need to be sort of very close. We don't really want to be too close. We have Acid Splash, not a particularly good cantrip, but it does acid damage. Detect Magic, not really suitable for this situation so far. Mage Armor. Now, Mage Armor should have been cast by your wizard at the very beginning of the adventuring day. And if you haven't done that, you should have done that, because it lasts 8 hours. So as soon as you get up and you start to venture off and do your adventuring or begin your day once you've had your meal and so forth, you should be using your first level slot to cast Mage Armor. And the reason being is, otherwise, this particular character would only have an armor class of 13, but with mage armor you now have a armor class of 16. And when you need to use a spell like shield to protect yourself, you get to add another +5, which means your armor class can potentially, to avoid being struck by something and causing and taking damage, your armor class can potentially be 21. And the last one is Thunderwave. Well, there's already an avalanche. We don't really want to make things any worse than they are. So I'm just going to remove these. So I want you to start thinking about the sorts of things that you might use. I am removing the ones that I think are most likely not going to come into play at all, and if they are, things have gone horribly wrong. I think more likely we're going to be using a lot of Firebolt and moving. Okay, so let's get started. Let's do a Firebolt from this distance. Now we've got plenty of range because it's got a range, as it happens, of about 120 feet, which is why I like the spell a lot. Firebolt. Now our attack modifier for the Firebolt is a +5, and we're going to roll a 20-sided dice to try and hit the target. We can see the target, which is good. It might be in a snowy location, but can still see it. So you roll a 20-sided dice. I rolled a 15. So 15 plus 5 is 20. That is our result. And I'll just lay that down there so you can see what's going on there. So it has to be, the attack roll needs to be equal to or greater than to hit the target. Fortunately, the Yeti has an armor class which is pretty low. It's only got a 12. Natural armor, only 12. But it's got a lot of hit points, and that's the thing that's really going to be problematic for us. So we hit our target, and now we do damage. Fortunately for us, Firebolt doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but it does a reasonable amount of damage. So we're going to roll a 10-sided dice, and that's how much fire damage we do. We do not add our spell casting modifier or any other modifiers for a cantrip. Okay, this cantrip is just going to be the dice roll. So 10-sided dice, I rolled a 2. It's not very good. I'm not going to give you the calculation on here for damage because it's pretty simple. I rolled a 2, we do 2 damage. Okay, I'll just make a note there. There. That's the damage. So as the Dungeon Master, that 2 fire damage we then deduct from our creature. Now a Yeti has an armor class of 51, so we deduct 2, it comes to 49. It's going to take a long time if we're going to keep doing this. Okay, so that is our action. We don't have a bonus action to spend. What we will do is we will move. Now, I would suggest to you the smartest thing to do is to move back. We can move back 30 feet. That gives us a bit of distance between us and the Yeti. Now, we can go laterally or we can go up the hill towards the avalanche. I think probably to keep the distance between the Yeti and the avalanche, we're going to go up the hill. That's my choice for now. And I'm not going to move the miniature. I'm just going to say that's what's happening because the distance will change. Otherwise, everything's going to wind up off the mat. Okay, so we're moving back out of reach, 30 feet. Okay, so that's that action. Next, let's go to the Yeti. Now, the Yeti has a long distance to cover, and it can move 40 feet. So it is just going to barrel up towards our character. It has multi-attack, so it can do a gaze attack once it gets close enough, and it gets 2 claws. So it can do an awful lot of damage once it gets into reach. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to place the miniature back where it is, and then I'll just calculate it. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That's the first move. So it's moved, but we still haven't got close enough to our wizard, who is actually 30 feet back from its current location. So we're going to move again, and we'll use our action to dash. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Okay, so that means with the 5, there's a distance of 5 feet between us. Add the 30 feet we actually moved back, we should be roughly about 35 feet away from the wizard. So what we'll do is we'll just go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. There is where, that's our distance between our 2 characters. And that distance is going to get smaller and smaller as things progress. But our Yeti has taken their action. Still bellowing and yelling at the wizard as the wizard freaks out and is calling for help and assistance. That's really what you should be doing. If you're not calling for help. I don't know what you're thinking. Assessing your situation, no. By all means, move and shoot. It'll allow you a couple of rounds to actually get a few shots and hopefully drive the creature off. Now, one of the things that happens when a creature like this takes fire damage, okay, so fear of fire. The Yeti has a fear of fire. If the Yeti takes fire damage, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the end of its next turn. Now, that's not going to come into play just yet, but remember, when it gets a bit closer, it might. Okay, so let's do another firebolt. So grab our 20-sided dice for our wizard and cast firebolt. We are definitely in range. So 5 plus 14 equals 19. And as we determined last time, I'll just put it behind us now, make it a little bit easier. Okay, 19 is greater than the armor class of the Yeti, who has an armor class of 12. So we're going to do some damage. So grab that dice, that's the 10-sided dice, roll the dice. I got a 5. So 5 is good. That means we'll do a little bit more. We're trimming off more than we had before. Okay, so that's 5 damage. Now we're going to start getting into a bit of a pickle shortly once it gets into range, and it certainly will once it takes its next turn. So 49 minus 5 comes to 44. Okay, all right. So, and as before, we're going to move. Now the reason we're moving is to keep ourselves as far away from the creature so it can't attack us, right? Because that's exactly what it's going to do. So we've shot, we've got nothing to do as a bonus action, so we're going to move. So that means we're going to move 30 feet backward, back towards the avalanche that's raging down the mountain towards us. And what I'm going to do, instead of sort of shuffling things around in a really weird way, I'm going to just move the Yeti backward to indicate that the wizard is moving. That's going to be a bit confusing for you. Maybe if I just I'll put the Yeti here, and it's still on the screen. Yeah, it's still on the screen, and then we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So imagine that's our distance. So we're going to move 30 feet backward, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Each square represents 5 feet. So we've increased the distance between us. We finish our turn as the wizard, and we're into round 2 with the Yeti. Now the Yeti has got to cover that distance again. So we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. You can see that in this round, we've taken our movement, we have an action left, and we're going to move the rest of the distance, and that will get us in contact with the wizard. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, so that gets us in play with the wizard. We are now up close. We've used our movement, we've used our action to do a dash with the Yeti, and we've finished our turn. There's nothing more we can do, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. So now we'll back up. This is round 3 for the wizard, and the wizard now has to start making some choices, some hard choices, because we've only got one spell slot. We've used our one of our spell slots to cast Mage Armor. If we use a big spell at this present time, that means we don't have the benefit of using something like Shield. There's no reason to assume that the character will know an awful lot about the creature, but you could, as a player, ask to do something what's called like a knowledge check on this creature or monster to sort of learn a little bit about it. Now, your Dungeon Master will set a DC for that. It could be 5 or 10, as you know it's a Yeti. 15, 20 might get a bit of information about the Yeti. And this is usually anything from a knowledge check is usually going to be around intelligence. They might decide that arcana or nature is appropriate. I think arcana is probably more appropriate since this Yeti is a magical creature of some kind. So we're going to roll a 20-sided dice. We're going to set the DC, say 15, 20, I'll make something up, in terms of what the character can learn about the Yeti. So I rolled a 11. We add our Arcana check, so we'll just do that. This is Arcana. So I know we're doing combat, and you're thinking, well, Fred, why are we doing a knowledge check in the middle of battle? Because, for one, it does not require an action. to make a knowledge check. It doesn't require an action. I find it frustrating that people often overlook this when they should be doing something with it. So 15. There we go. So I would say 15 means you know something about the Yeti. So a 16 falls into that bracket. So what piece of information as the Dungeon Master would we reveal? I'm going to say that the wizard knows that it's a Yeti. It lives in a cold environment, and it knows that it has a thing called a chilling gaze. A chilling gaze is very, very bad. We don't want to be hit by the chilling gaze. The claws, the wizard might survive, but the chilling gaze is probably going to cause an awful lot of trouble. Okay, so we know a little bit about the creature. The only problem is we can't escape it. We know it moves faster, so even if we move and disengage, we're still going to be struck. It's going to move up and just hit us again. So we're not going to get away from it. It's going to be able to get us on its next turn. We could take the move and dodge action, which means it gets disadvantage on any attack it makes. But then once we've done that, it's still going to move up and make attacks. Those will all be, if you take the dodge action, at disadvantage. But the following turn, it's going to use its gaze attack. So there's no real good situation for dealing with this at this present time. How can you get out of a situation like that? Not necessarily going to be possible, not unless you can understand and communicate Yeti, which you don't. So we'll move this. And so what we're going to do is, instead of making things difficult for ourselves and suffering more attacks, we're going to just go with casting a spell. And by casting that spell, we're going to leave our 1 level slot spell alone. We're going to cast a spell and just try to hit it with something that will hurt it and hopefully distract it from doing anything else to us. Now, we don't necessarily know that it's got a fear of fire, so we're going to just use something nice and simple. We're going to use a spell called Shocking Grasp. It's a melee spell, so basically it means you can touch the creature to use this. It's usually more effective against something that has armor, but in this case we don't want to provoke attacks of opportunity, and we don't really want disadvantage either. So that's the spell I'm going to select for today. Now you're watching, you have the opportunity, remember, to say, okay, I feel that choice was the wrong choice and that a better choice might have been to do something else. So by all means, use the comments to let me know what would have been your choice. So we've still got a 5 for our attack modifier for Shocking Grasp. We roll our attack. We're going to touch the creature and try to shock it. So I got a 5. Thank God it wasn't disadvantage. It would have been even worse. Not that it's going to make any difference. So 5 plus 5 is 10. Now, as you know, armor class on the Yeti is pretty low. It's a 12, right? But 10 is less than the armor class of a Yeti. So we don't hit the target, unfortunately. We don't do damage this time. It's a little bit unfortunate. I thought that the chances of hitting the target were pretty good, but it didn't work out. It's all right. And we're not going to move, because if we move, we're going to get hit. But we will scream out for help again. Okay, it is now down to the Yeti. This is where the Yeti finally gets to do something terrible and devastating, I would imagine. So let's start off with the claw attacks before we do the gaze, because it could be all over Rover very, very quickly. So claw, there are 2 claw attacks we get to make. So claw, each of those attacks do a fair chunk of damage. I believe the claw, hang on, it's a +6 for the claw, and we're going to do 2 of these. So I'll make sure I roll 2 separate dice. So the first attack with the claw is a 12, and the second attack with the claw is an 8, and we're going to add them up. So 6 and 12 is 18. So you can already see that attack's going to definitely hit the wizard, right? And then 6 and 8 is a grand total of 14. Now 14 wouldn't hit the wizard. Did I say the cleric? The wizard. I'm talking about the wizard. We're not talking about a cleric. There's no cleric today. Forget about the cleric. Okay, so here are our claw attacks. That's what we've rolled. We don't need to worry about this because we have mage armor, but the 18 will hurt us and could potentially take us out of the fight. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to use a spell called Shield. Now the great thing about Shield is it's a reaction. We can cast it even if we know the outcome. I know a lot of people get upset about how shield is used in their game, and believe that a player must not know the actual numerical value. They need to decide whether they're going to use shield or not. But the spell is actually set up in such a way and designed and intended so that you do know what the numerical value is. If you are a dungeon master and you disagree with me and you disagree with the designers and their application of that rule, that's perfectly fine, because you are the dungeon master. You get to run the game as you wish, because it's your game. But that's how I run my game. I allow the players to know the numerical value, since it doesn't state that they can't know the numerical value, and designers did indicate that. That was fine. So this is a good time to use shield. So the armor class for our wizard is normally a 16. But if we cast shield, it means for this whole round, not the turn, but the whole round, all attacks against it are now going to have a harder time hitting. So one wizard has an armor class, so AC was 16. We're going to add 5. It's going to come out at 21. Hopefully you can see that. It's starting to run out of space. There we go, 21. So our armor class is now greater. So the blow from the claw does not strike. That doesn't save us from the gaze attack, because unfortunately we still got to deal with the gaze attack. Now here is the problem. I'm going to read out the information and give you an idea. You tell me how you see this. Chilling gaze. The Yeti targets one creature it can see within 30 feet. Well, okay, the wizard's within 30 feet of it. If the target can see the Yeti, which it can, the target must succeed on a DC 13 Constitution saving throw against this magic, or take 10, which is the average damage. You don't have to roll dice. Or you can roll damage and go 3d6, which is 3 6-sided dice worth of cold damage, and then it's paralyzed for 1 minute. Well, that's going to make an awful lot of a mess of our wizard, unless it is immune to cold damage, and our wizard is not immune to cold damage. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. If the target's saving throw is successful, or if the effect ends on it, the target is immune to the chilling gaze of the Yetis, but not the Abominable Yeti, which is a different creature, for up to 1 hour. Okay. So it all comes down to making a successful Constitution saving throw against this creature. And the saving throw required is a DC 13. So we're going to try and do that. There's a good chance we might make it. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got. We've got a saving throw for Constitution of +1. It's not actually listed here at all, so we're just rolling a +1, which is the Constitution modifier. Okay, there it is. We've just rolled it. And I'll just do the quick calculations for you so you can see that. So as I said, the Constitution saving throw modifier was a 1. And we're going to add 7, because I rolled 7 on the dice. That comes out at 8. Okay, we can already see that things aren't working out. So 8 is not equal to or greater than the Constitution saving throw of 13 that we required. So it's going to cause a bit of a mess to the wizard. The wizard is now going to take some damage. So we're going to roll those damage now. So I'm going to grab 3 6-sided dice. 1, 2, 3. Just like so. We'll roll these dice. And remember, even if we don't do very much damage, we're going to have paralyzed the target, which means paralyzed is bad. In any game, paralyzed is always bad. Okay, so it's a truckload of damage. Truckload. Calculate that for you. Now, have a look at the spell. There's no modifier to add to those 3 6-sided dice, so it's just those dice for the chilling gaze, okay? Nothing else. So chilling gaze, and we rolled a 5, plus another 5, plus a 6. We rolled very, very high. So that's 16 damage. Okay, well, 16 damage, that's a lot of damage. Right, so let's have a look and see what we've got here. So 16, let's compare that with the armor class, with the AC of the wizard. The wizard has 17 hit points. And we've done more than, not 17, 7 hit points, should I say. 7 hit points, not 17. That'd be a very powerful wizard, wouldn't it? So 7 hit points. So we're going to have reduced the wizard to 0 hit points. So it is definitely down. Is it unconscious or dead? The easiest way to understand that is if we reduce from the one blow or one attack that causes damage, did we reduce the creature to 0 hit points and then reduce it again by its maximum hit points below 0 to a negative number that's equal to the maximum. So in other words, if you do double the damage of your character, so if we did say for the wizard who's got 7 hit points, if we do 14, that will instantly kill. There's no deaths, dying saves, there's nothing you can do. So we've definitely killed the wizard completely. It's absolutely obliterated. Nothing left. All done. All done and dusted. And really, that's it. It's pretty simple. Not too much to it. At this point, of course, I could decide to have the rest of the party show up to try and contend with the Yeti, but there is probably an avalanche barreling down the hill that is coming towards them that they need to worry about more, unless, of course, you've got really good friends. Okay, so this is your opportunity as a Dungeon Master. Let me know if you think you might use an encounter like this, setting it up. Now, I haven't played out the avalanche because I'm going to use the avalanche for another video. And if you are a player, what would you have done differently to what I have done? Is there something you would have done differently in that situation? Do you think you could have played it out in a better way? So, by all means, use the comment section. Now, if you like these sorts of videos, please watch more of them. There are a whole bunch of videos on combat tutorials. There are videos for players and dungeon masters and all sorts of different topics. I'll have a Patreon page if you want to support me, so I keep doing this sort of thing. I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon if you want to buy stuff online and support me as well. I suggest clicking the like, subscribe and share button. You can click the bell button if you really want, but since I'm going to be live streaming an awful lot, you might not want to be notified about anywhere from 3 to 4 live streams every single day. So you might actually want to turn the bell button off for a little while. Just a warning there. Not to mention YouTube's bell button doesn't seem to work that well anyway, so it's sort of a moot point. Anyway, until next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone, but I do need a drink of water. And we'll just pull up that screen and have a look at the chat. I know this is very early for some people, and I know this is not normally a time that I would do this sort of thing, but I wanted to sort of start presenting people with, I guess, some encounters that they could run, really simple stuff. Is this unfair for a level 1 group? I would say probably it's a tough battle. If they're inexperienced players, it might be very difficult. If you've got a group which has got about 6 players, I think they'll be fine with a Yeti. Bearing in mind that Yeti can still take out a character completely at level 1, so I know that's one thing you might be concerned about. But there's always other ways of getting a player character back into the battle. I also wanted to make sure that people who are playing the game and not dungeon mastering had an opportunity to see how some of the tactics can be used in an encounter, make some decisions themselves, and also, yes, the Yeti will be feeding and dragging the wizard off. That's probably the first thing, is the Yeti would pick up the wizard and put it over its back and then bootle it out of there because there's a avalanche coming down the hill. So yes, I just wanted to make sure that people have an opportunity to see how that could play out. Use some of the spells and some of the actions in combat just so that you understand, and an opportunity to ask questions. Okay, so let's have a look at the chat. Smash Bro 99's here. How's it going, mate? Matt's here. That's a good idea. I'll comment near the end. Okay, Smash Bro. Cool. Now, is that Monarch? Monarch? Mornar. I think it's Mornar. If I got it wrong, sorry. Nice, glad to catch my first live stream. Hey, welcome to it. If I got your name, if I butchered your name, I do apologise. Brent, what do you got here? Oh boy, here comes the dead wizard. Yes, well, it makes it a lot easier for me if the characters come to a sticky end, unless I'm using a monster that has a lot of very few hit points. The problem is that often I find that the power balance is usually in the player's field. You know, players' characters are usually more powerful and more dangerous than a monster. So you have to chuck a stronger monster up against a single character when you're doing something like this, so that what'll happen is you'll actually be able to demonstrate anything. Otherwise, what'll happen is if you roll really high with the player character and you do this, there's nothing to actually show because it's all over. The monster never gets to do anything because they're dead. So hence why I do it kind of like this. And also too, I could show you with all of the miniatures. I could do a whole party, but it would just be a drag. If Hubba, you're late again. Sorry, man. Like I said, that bell button, just turn the bell button off. It's not even working, is it? I'm going to be doing a lot of live streams today anyway, so it's not really going to mean very much to you. Sundry, how's it going? Yeti was probably hungry. Throw it some food. Well, that's right. Throwing it some food would have been a good idea. Pulling, if you've got rations in your pack, which you should hopefully be bringing along with you, throwing them and then running and booting it away from the Yeti and the avalanche, smart move. Yes, I think that's the way to go. Wouldn't have made a very good video, but I think you are right, Sundry. That would have been the smart move. That would have probably got you out of a pickle. F Hubba, let the low-level people see that Yeti early enough to run. Yes. Well, there was a lot of distance, so you could run if you wanted to. And given that there's an avalanche coming down the hill, probably running would be a great idea. But you'd have to have run sort of laterally rather than down the hill towards the Yeti or up the hill towards the avalanche, right? DMs have a tendency to not even give a chance to see something until it's too late to run. Yes, I know, F Hubba, you've mentioned on many occasions that there should be an opportunity to see the creature at long distance. Now, the only reason why I didn't do that is, one, I can't do that with my map. The camera only goes out so far, okay? And my desk is only so big. Also, too, remember that the Yeti has the camouflage this ability, okay? Snow camouflage. It means it can get up pretty close before you'll notice it. In some cases, it would be possible for a Yeti to potentially get up very, very close before you even know it's there and not have the kind of distance that I place between the wizard and the Yeti to use. Save or Die. Hi, Fred. Great stream. Hey, thank you, Save or Die. Hopefully somebody will find it useful. What's this, Fred? Thanks. Not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, F Hubba, how far can you see a person walking down the street? A lot more than 60 feet. Well, first off, you're assuming that everybody has your vision, F Hubba. Okay? Remember, some people might be wearing corrective lenses. And so therefore, seeing somebody walking down the street, they might, I think you assume too much. You assume that everybody has 20/20 vision, and that all the characters have 20/20 vision. They may not have 20/20 vision. And walking down the street, being able to see somebody and know exactly what's coming down the street is a different story. Now, I totally get it. If you're in a big open area and you've got good vision, then you would be able to see them for quite a long way before, certainly a lot more than 60 feet. So that is not really the issue. I think the issue is you're saying that Dungeon Masters assume that things can be a lot closer. It's really way down to the fact that their maps, anything beyond 60 feet is just getting too big for a table. And also too, if you're dealing with a storm, there's a blizzard coming in, as I did mention, okay, exactly. As the description at the start indicated, there was a storm, visibility was down, so therefore I did actually play up and indicate that visibility wasn't going to be great. And I did actually give the wizard significantly more chance than, might have taken place. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions and any more feedback, I'm going to take off because I have to get organised and set up a massive combat for Dungeons & Dragons 5e video in about an hour-ish. It's about 11 o'clock, I think I'll be running that New Zealand Standard Time. And sort of show you how you could run part of a massive combat or battle in Dungeons & Dragons 5e without using the rather cumbersome Dungeons & Dragons 5e mass combat rules, which I feel sort of suck. Okay, alright, so I'll say what I normally say, and that is have a good day, morning, afternoon, night, evening, whatever it is in your country. Look after yourself, look after your family, make sure that you look after your friends as well. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.